Hello everyone, I'm Force McFreelova, and this is Speedplay Hearts of Iron 4 as Germany number 12. We left off attacking the Swedes, probably going to move some forces over to Ireland, researching more naval things, and just generally preparing ourselves for the future. The main thing is I want to defeat the Irish before anything else, because I don't want them to just join the Allies at some later point and then start messing up our just center of power over in the British Isles. So we go ahead and plan an invasion over into Northern Ireland, and before you get upset, later on I do discover that you can just select to move troops from one province you own to another, although admittedly it would have been nice to figure that out a little bit earlier. We also go ahead and set up garrisons for Scandinavia and the British Isles in order that we may hopefully get troops to just garrison the whole area without really too much micromanagement, honestly. And alright, with that all done, we are just going to go ahead and continue focusing on our various research paths, which mean just surface navy primarily, and also eventually probably something like wonder weapons, although those will probably not come up for a little bit, especially since we won't even begin those researches until 1943, and that's still a few months away, and the game is rather unfortunately slowing down quite a bit, which is a little awful since we're in a really interesting lull in just the combat and really just everything in general. Meanwhile, we're not actually doing too well with our invasion of Sweden. It would have been great if we could just force our way right on through. That does not appear to be happening, which is rather unfortunate to say the least. Once we do manage to break this one area, though, I do believe it will be a much easier fight for the rest of Sweden. It's just a matter of actually breaking through that's going to slow us down quite a bit. We are also bringing in quite a large number of our close air support units just to get overwhelming, devastating air superiority in the region. We are building up our air force above and beyond anything else. So we're going to have an air force that should ideally just be able to devastate anywhere and everywhere. Now, the fact that that is not turning into a victory or not translating into an easy victory in this battle is a little upsetting. Although perhaps since that is the main point of Swedish resistance, understandable. We also are now getting alerts just based on how many fighters we have waiting in reserve. So we're going to go ahead and start creating these air units just in various places. Not that we really even need any more air forces, but we can afford it. And a really good idea might be to build an upgraded, more modernized land army, like maybe an entire armored and mechanized group. Right now we are only really using motorized and admittedly some level of armored. So that might be a good place to transition to, since we do have a pretty decent sized air force that is only growing larger at just an incredible rate. That does also kind of make me worry about the inevitable fight against the United States if we do manage to land on them, since I can only assume they must have a similar, although probably quite a bit lower, but somewhere similar level of production as we will. We also notice that there is a British landing taking place. All of our forces in Africa, which are just expeditionary units from other countries, aren't really doing anything. So we go ahead and set up an Africa command and give them just kind of vague orders to generally just man the fronts and then move in the direction of all of the Allied holdings in an attempt to just kind of undo all of that. We do take manual control for the initial bit to just give them initial attack orders, hopefully cleaning out a few Allied pockets that are just kind of there for no reason or another. And besides all that, you'll notice still haven't made progress in the Swedish Offensive, which is at this point our longest and probably at this point bloodiest running war to date, just considering the significant portion of our forces fighting it and actually just attempting to achieve something without really any great odds of it. We managed to get our first units into the Irish home area, home island. Now we can hopefully go ahead, and that's when I discovered that we can just right-click more troops over, which was a little upsetting since we just waited 70 days for this bit. At any rate, we declare war, and we're just going to rove over. 7 motorized units should be enough. I believe 5 of them are tanks. A decent number are tanks at any rate. So we're going to just spread out, hopefully capture all of their victory points, and then get the Irish to capitulate, hopefully with not too much time in between. We do have just overwhelming air superiority, however all of our close air support is busy just kind of defeating the Swedes. I don't think we need anything more than just our armored and motorized units, though. We have already taken over the vast majority of their countryside pretty quickly, and we go ahead and build up more naval bases. We are winning pretty much everywhere. It looks as though they didn't surrender despite us having all their victory points, and there they go, they managed to capitulate. Now we're going to just put all of our forces in Dublin and focus on moving in first to Denmark, and then hopefully we will go and island hop over into the North American continent. I look for more national focuses to get, but I can't really find any that seem great. We're going to go ahead and use 5 armored and 5 motorized units to go invade Iceland, and meanwhile our forces are continuing to not really win this battle in Sweden, which is moderately upsetting. However, we are at least not doing terribly poorly, and I can only assume that we're draining away their men and organization slightly quicker than our own, simply due to the fact that they seem to have quite a bit of infantry and no air support whatsoever. Also, I try to do a naval landing, only to discover that we are only capable of sending 10 units via naval landings anywhere in the world at any point. This is because we do not have the transport technology in order to do anything more. We go ahead and get even more air forces in the region, and it looks like we did finally manage to win that battle, so we start shipping over all of our forces, and all of our allied units also come over as well. We are still somehow losing that fight, which is terribly worrying. I go ahead and get even more aerial units. Now we're finally winning the defense of our little foothold in the Swedish countryside. As soon as this battle turns from just an active fight into a victory for us, we can start moving out with the full weight of this entire armored army, and we will see just how well the Swedes are able to defend themselves in an area that isn't just frozen wasteland and forest. Now, at this point, it is almost certainly the longest war we've actively fought, the war against Sweden. I checked to see what the Japanese have accomplished. They really haven't done much. They took Hawaii, but none of the Southeast Asian islands like Indonesia and all of that. We go ahead and set up even more air units. Now that we have all the rubber we need, we are just pumping out a ridiculous amount of air forces, which is kind of nice. We have 1,000 naval bombers, which we're just going to park in the North Sea and hope for the best. And we're still not yet done with that battle. We go ahead and attack manually across the African front since not much is going on, because I didn't realize that we had not actually activated the plan. Although it looks as though a decent number of places the Allies can hold out in, there are a few battles which we will be able to win. And there we go, we won that battle. We go ahead and split our force into 2 groups. We're going to just start driving out from the Swedish, foothold into their countryside and eventual hinterland. We also begin researching nuclear reactors so we can eventually get the bomb if the war does drag on that long, which I hope it won't, but it very well may. It looks as though we're also finally able to launch our naval invasion. However, we don't have the site of the area, so we're going to have to send a naval patrol at some point. For now, though, I'm more focused on our invasion into the Swedish countryside, which should hopefully go very well. We are just kind of driving more or less into it. The battles will be won. We aren't doing so great in Africa, however, we did finally activate the attack order, so they should be doing their job pretty soon. We also did manage to destroy an entire British pocketed area, and we're going to try to attack them in other locations and hope for the best. We finally have gotten out of our little pocket, or our little foothold, and now we are just destroying Swedish units left and right. We're going to just gun through their countryside. Now, admittedly, really, we were in a bad place earlier on, just attacking an enemy strong point. The great thing that armored units get is that you can just go around enemy strong points and encircle them. We weren't able to do that when we had to fight against just an entrenched enemy whose entire border, whose entire area we could attack them at, was entrenched. Now that we're in their countryside, though, if they do end up fighting us a little bit too hard in certain areas, we're just going to flank it, overwhelm it, encircle it, and destroy it. And do that over and over again, wherever, if ever, they actually manage to defend against us. So you'll notice we're just driving up beyond this entire Swedish army. We've managed to cut off and encircle that entire portion. They are defending themselves adequately in some areas. In others, though, they're not. And in those areas where they're not is going to be the deathbed of their entire military machine. The fact that the Swedish war has lasted so long is really nothing but a testament to the fact that their terrain has not allowed us to encircle them up until now. I believe we did actually find an old victory or a old national focus. We don't find one now, and we're probably not going to find one for quite a while. It all seems to be diplomatic options that aren't really relevant anymore, since all the relevant countries are pretty much just under our control at this point. We are continuing to drive in through the Swedish countryside, pouring through gaps in their resistance and encircling their armies. It looks as though we're going to just funnel a decent portion of our forces through really anywhere we can and just keep that up consistently. We also fabricate a claim on Norway. We'd already done that, but the battle took too long to actually go through. I believe now is... Alright, we're cutting through the Swedish. Probably just going to keep focusing on this war since it has been just such a struggle. We've managed to overwhelm a few of their units because our motorized units are advancing quicker than they can retreat, which is nice. Our naval invasion has finally taken off. I believe that, or no, now we're setting up the submarine patrols, just patrolling the coast to get enough intel to actually launch the invasion, which I guess does make sense that we wouldn't want to invade anywhere if we had no idea what to expect on the coast. You'll notice almost universal green lines throughout all of the areas where we're attacking the Swedes. It looks as though the center of their resistance is basically come across, or has basically just fallen apart. So it should just be a short little drive and we will be able to overwhelm them, hopefully in their entirety. And that is at least the goal, the objective we're working towards. They are just moving their capital back eternally. It looks as though they only have one more victory point in the entire southern portion of their country, which we have just managed to seize right now. And even their remaining army units are working very hard at not getting encircled and getting encircled nevertheless. So hopefully we'll just complete this. Japan declared war on Norway, which is a bit weird. There is also one victory point up here in the north of Sweden, which we can hopefully get pretty soon. Our armies in the south may just be able to move all the way up to the northern front with some relative speed and ease, since they are able more or less to just encircle enemy elements. I don't really doubt too much that we'll be able to defeat the Swedes fairly soon, more likely than not by the end of this episode. We are driving forward just in general. At this point, they are just doggedly resisting for what I would argue is no great reason. We did have a Norwegian theater open up, so we might get attacked from the flank. It doesn't look as though there are very many forces there at the moment, which is a bit sad, for if we declared the war ourselves, we could have managed to bring enough forces over to just destroy the Norwegians without much of a fight. Since the Japanese initiated the war, we don't get that opportunity, and the Norwegians will probably have time to get a formidable defense up. Once we defeat Sweden, though, we'll have our entire armored army here. Two of them, actually, since we have 2/3 of our armored forces in Sweden right now. That will be more than enough to defeat Norway, especially along a long frontier like the one that we will have as soon as Sweden capitulates. Alright, so that all said and done, we are attempting invasions into Norway. They're not going well at all. We were hoping to just seize their capital. We also have a unit encircled in the north. Hopefully we'll be able to relieve them. The Swedes are putting up some dogged resistance on the new frontier. I'm actually looking to see what it'll take for us to take their land. It says they have 11% of their victory points and will surrender once they only have 10. I don't see what victory points we're missing, unless just territory on the ground gives you some small level of victory points. I can't honestly see what we still need to take. One of the reasons we're hovering so close to the terrain right now is to just see if there are any things that we're missing. I can't honestly see any of them, so I'm very confused as to why the war is still ticking on. Maybe it is... Okay, there we go. They've managed to surrender. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. When we get back tomorrow, we're going to complete our invasion of Iceland, which we have unfortunately allowed to get to 0 organization, and hopefully just keep driving over the Atlantic in an attempt to eventually take over the United States and conquer the world. Have a great day. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.